The galaxy had once feared a single name more than any empire, any weapon, or any fleet ever built. Humanity. 500 years earlier, the human stellar navy had ruled no one, yet every civilization respected its strength. Whenever pirates threatened trade routes, human fleets arrived first. Whenever an ancient machine civilization awakened, it was humanity that answered the distress call. Their ships were famous across the stars, not because they conquered worlds, but because they ended wars before they could consume entire civilizations. Then one mission changed everything. The human stellar navy's greatest creation, the HSS Dominion, disappeared beyond the edge of known space. It was more than a supercarrier. It was a floating city nearly 30 kilometers long, carrying thousands of crew members, hundreds of fighters, entire research divisions, manufacturing facilities, and enough firepower to defeat fleets several times its size. Official records simply stated, mission status, lost, no distress signal, no wreckage, no survivors. After decades of searching, humanity accepted the impossible. The Dominion was gone. Centuries passed. Humanity slowly transformed. Instead of building giant warships, they invested in diplomacy, science, and exploration. Their once feared navy became a peacekeeping force, while younger generations dismissed stories of the old human stellar navy as exaggerated legends. Only historians still remembered the Dominion, and even they believed it would never return. Far across Alliance space, another story was unfolding. The Vorak Dominion had conquered over 4,000 star systems in less than a century. Entire civilizations surrendered without resistance after witnessing what happened to those who refused. Planets burned. Moons shattered. Ancient empires disappeared in weeks. The Galactic Alliance had become the final obstacle standing between the Vorak and complete control of the galaxy. Inside Unity Prime, the Alliance's military headquarters orbiting the capital world of Alicia, the mood had become hopeless. Supreme Admiral Terran Voss stood before the enormous tactical display. Red markers continued spreading across the galactic map. Each represented another lost world. General Kareth approached quietly. "We've lost contact with the Orion defense line." Terran didn't answer. Another officer stepped forward. "The Fourth Fleet has been destroyed." Silence. Then another report arrived. "The Vorak have entered the Helios corridor." Every commander in the room understood what that meant. Nothing remained between the Vorak and the Alliance capital except a handful of exhausted fleets. Military projections estimated only 26 days before the final assault. 26 days before everything ended. For the first time in her 40-year career, Admiral Voss had no strategy left. The Vorak simply possessed too many ships, too many soldiers, too many resources. Every battle ended the same way. The Alliance fought bravely. The Vorak advanced anyway. Suddenly, an unfamiliar alert echoed through the command center. Lieutenant Elias Mercer frowned at his communications console. "Admiral, I'm detecting an unidentified transmission." Terran turned. "Origin." Mercer enlarged the holographic star map. The signal appeared far beyond Alliance territory, beyond neutral space, beyond every explored system. Came from the Black Expanse, a region no explorer had ever successfully mapped. Ships entered. None returned. Several scientists immediately objected. "That's impossible." Mercer checked the coordinates again. "They're correct." Terran crossed her arms. "What kind of signal is it?" Mercer hesitated. "It identifies itself as human." The room immediately fell silent. Human? That made no sense. There were no human colonies anywhere near the Black Expanse. Director Hale spoke calmly. "Authenticate it." The Alliance supercomputer immediately began analyzing the transmission. Rows of encrypted symbols filled every display. Then the computer stopped. Mercer stared at the results. His face slowly lost its color. "The encryption. What about it?" Terran asked. "It belongs to the old human stellar navy." Several historians instantly stood. One elderly archivist walked closer to the display. His hands trembled. "I know this code." Everyone looked toward him. It belonged to only one vessel. The room waited. The HSS Dominion. Silence. Nobody laughed. Nobody questioned him. Every military academy in the galaxy taught the legend of humanity's lost flagship. 5 centuries earlier, the Dominion had departed on its final classified mission. It never returned. Mercer whispered, "Someone is using its identification codes." The old historian slowly shook his head. No. He looked directly at Admiral Voss. Those codes were never copied. Before anyone could respond, every alarm in Unity Prime activated at once. Warning lights flashed across the command center. Sensor officers shouted over one another. Massive hyperspace disturbance detected. Energy levels rising. Origin confirmed. The Black Expanse. Scientists stared in disbelief. The readings continued climbing. Higher, higher, higher still. One physicist quietly muttered, "That's impossible. No known reactor could generate that much energy. No known hyperspace drive could open a portal of that magnitude." Then, every long-range telescope automatically locked onto the source. Across every screen appeared absolute darkness. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then space itself began to bend. Stars stretched into impossible lines. A brilliant blue vortex slowly opened within the void. Its diameter continued expanding until it dwarfed entire space stations. The command center watched in complete silence. Something enormous waited inside. A shadow slowly emerged from the glowing storm. First came the bow, then endless armored hull plating, massive hangar doors, towering weapon batteries. The silhouette continued growing until no one could see its end. It wasn't simply a warship. It looked like a city traveling through hyperspace. Ancient human markings became visible across the hull. The Alliance computer automatically identified them. Then every display changed simultaneously. Identification confirmed. Vessel, HSS Dominion. Status, operational. A second later, the speakers throughout Unity Prime came alive. A calm human voice echoed through the command center. "This is Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward of the Human Stellar Navy. We have returned from the frontier. Please identify yourselves and explain why every emergency beacon in the galaxy is active." No one answered, because every person in that room knew one impossible truth. Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward had been declared dead 500 years ago. The silence inside Unity Prime lasted almost 10 seconds. No one moved. No one spoke. Every officer, scientist, and historian stood frozen, staring at the holographic image of the impossible vessel floating at the edge of known space. The HSS Dominion, a ship that had disappeared 5 centuries earlier. A ship that history had declared lost forever. Yet there it was, transmitting on frequencies abandoned hundreds of years ago as if no time had passed at all. Supreme Admiral Terran Voss finally broke the silence. "Open a secure channel." Lieutenant Elias Mercer looked uncertain. "Admiral, if this is some kind of trap, if the Vorak possessed technology capable of creating something like that," Terran interrupted, "we would already be dead." Mercer nodded and activated the transmission. For a brief moment, static filled every speaker. Then the image stabilized. A human officer appeared on the main screen. He stood on the bridge of the Dominion, wearing the dark blue uniform of the old human stellar navy. His silver hair was neatly trimmed, and despite his age, his posture was perfectly straight. His calm blue eyes scanned the Alliance Command Center. "I am Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward, Commanding Officer of Expedition Fleet 1. His voice carried absolute confidence. "You requested communication." Terran stepped forward. "I am Supreme Admiral Terran Voss of the Galactic Alliance." Ward looked around the command center. "The Alliance still exists." "It does." "Good." For a moment, neither commander spoke. Then Ward asked the question that shocked everyone. "What year is it?" The officers exchanged confused glances. Terran answered carefully. "Galactic Standard Date, 8421. Ward frowned. One of the officers behind him quickly checked a holographic display. Another whispered something into his ear. The bridge of the Dominion suddenly became unusually quiet. Ward looked back toward the camera. Our departure date was 7920. No one replied. The difference was obvious. 501 years. A young woman standing behind Ward slowly removed her glasses. Admiral. Her voice carried disbelief. The temporal calculations. Ward nodded. I know. He looked back at Terran. We believed our expedition lasted just over 11 years. A wave of astonishment swept across the Alliance Command Center. 11 years for them. 5 centuries for the rest of the galaxy. The Dominion hadn't simply disappeared. It had been trapped by something beyond the edge of known space. Ward took a slow breath. Please explain the current strategic situation. Without saying a word, Terran signaled the tactical officers. The giant holographic map appeared between both command centers. Blue stars represented surviving Alliance territory. Red stars represented the Vorak Dominion. Ward's expression remained calm as the briefing began. Approximately 87 years ago, Terran explained, the Vorak entered our galaxy from the Perseus Rift. The map shifted. Red markers spread rapidly across hundreds of systems. They attacked without warning. Images replaced the map. Burning cities, shattered orbital stations, civilian evacuation fleets, destroyed Alliance battleships drifting through space, entire planets covered in smoke. Ward watched every image without interrupting. They've conquered over 4,000 systems, Terran continued. Every major military coalition has fallen. She paused before speaking again. The Alliance is all that's left. Ward folded his hands behind his back. And humanity? We survived. But, Terran sighed, our military changed long ago. She looked almost embarrassed. We dismantled most of the old human stellar navy after centuries of peace. Ward remained silent. Our largest warship today would have been considered a heavy cruiser during your era. For the first time, a faint look of disappointment crossed Ward's face. Not anger, simply disappointment. He slowly turned toward the officers standing behind him. So the old navy truly became history. One of his captains answered quietly. It would seem so, sir. Ward faced the screen again. How long until the Vorak reach your capital? 26 days. And your chances of victory? The room fell silent. No one wanted to answer. Finally, General Kareth spoke. Less than 5%. Ward nodded once, as though confirming a calculation already made in his own mind. He turned slightly away from the camera. Navigator. A young officer immediately responded. Sir. Plot a direct course to Alliance space. Course plotted. Estimated arrival? 9 hours. The Alliance officers stared in disbelief. 9 hours? The Black Expanse was weeks away using the fastest Alliance drives. Ward noticed their expressions. Our propulsion systems have improved considerably. That was an understatement. If they could cross unexplored space in hours instead of weeks, their technology had advanced far beyond anything the Alliance possessed. Before Terran could ask another question, every alarm inside Unity Prime activated again. A tactical officer shouted, Emergency! The Vorak 7th Armada has entered the Darius system. Another voice followed. They're attacking the civilian evacuation fleet. The holographic map zoomed in automatically. Thousands of helpless refugee ships were trapped between a dying star and an advancing Vorak battle group. Millions of civilians. Only a handful of Alliance escorts stood between them and certain destruction. General Kareth lowered his head. We're too far away. No fleet could reach them in time. The evacuation convoy was doomed. Ward quietly watched the tactical display. Then he asked one simple question. Permission to intervene? The room became silent. Terran looked at the legendary admiral. One ship, against an entire Vorak armada? Every instinct told her it was impossible. But then she remembered what she was looking at. The HSS Dominion wasn't just another warship. It was a legend that had somehow survived 500 impossible years. After a long pause, she nodded. Permission granted. Ward smiled for the first time. It wasn't the smile of a man eager for battle. It was the calm smile of a commander finally returning to his duty. He saluted. Then allow us to remind the galaxy. He turned toward his bridge crew. How the human stellar navy fought its wars. The bridge erupted into disciplined motion. Massive engines awakened. Blue light flooded the darkness around the Dominion. Behind it, thousands of unknown human warships accelerated in perfect formation. For the first time in 5 centuries, the human stellar navy was going to war once again. The bridge of the HSS Dominion was completely silent. There were no panicked voices, no frantic shouting, no officers rushing between consoles. Every member of the crew moved with calm precision, as if they had rehearsed this exact moment 1,000 times. Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward stood before the enormous holographic display with his hands behind his back. Status. Jump coordinates locked. Fleet synchronized. Quantum shields at 100%. All weapon systems online. Arrival in 30 seconds. Ward nodded once. Maintain formation. Behind the Dominion, more than 3,000 unknown human warships glided through hyperspace in perfect order. Not a single ship drifted out of position. Not one formation broke. The entire fleet moved like a single living organism. Thousands of light-years away, chaos consumed the Darius system. Civilian transports desperately tried to escape toward Alliance territory, while Vorak battleships closed in from every direction. Explosions illuminated the darkness. One refugee transport disappeared beneath a volley of plasma fire. Another drifted powerless after losing its engines. Children cried inside overcrowded evacuation ships. Medical vessels transmitted desperate distress calls. Alliance escorts fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Captain Rena Solis gripped the command rail aboard the Alliance cruiser Valor. Report. We've lost the starboard batteries. Forward shields at 21%. Enemy battleships are closing. Another violent explosion shook the ship. Warning lights filled the bridge. Rena looked toward the tactical display. Nearly 200 Vorak warships surrounded the convoy. Only 8 Alliance ships remained operational. She knew exactly how this battle would end. They would fight until their reactors failed. Then millions of civilians would die. Her communications officer suddenly shouted, "Captain, I'm detecting a hyperspace event." Rena frowned. Alliance reinforcements? The officer stared at his console. I don't know. The readings made no sense. The energy output continued climbing. Higher, higher, higher. No fleet possessed drives that powerful. Even the Vorak. Outside the bridge windows, space itself began to bend. A brilliant blue vortex opened above the battlefield. Both Alliance and Vorak ships immediately stopped firing. Every sensor in the system locked onto the anomaly. The portal continued expanding. 10 kilometers. 20. 50. The Vorak commander narrowed his eyes. What is that? Nobody answered. Then, something emerged. At first, only the massive bow became visible. Then endless armored hull sections. Towering defensive cannons. Rows of enormous hangar bays. The ship seemed impossible. It dwarfed every vessel around it. Even the Vorak flagship looked tiny beside it. Captain Rena whispered, "My God!" The tactical computer flashed across every Alliance display. Unknown human vessel detected. 1 second later, the identification updated. HSS Dominion. Every Alliance officer froze. The impossible legend had arrived. Aboard the Vorak flagship, High Commander Xerox watched the enormous vessel with visible confusion. Species identification? Human. He laughed. One ship. Another officer nodded. Yes, Commander. Xerox smiled. So the Alliance sends a museum relic to stop us. His bridge erupted with laughter. Humans. They had once been dangerous. Now they were merchants and diplomats. One ancient warship would change nothing. He activated an open transmission. This is High Commander Xerox of the Vorak Dominion. You have entered an active military operation. Surrender immediately. Several seconds passed. Then a calm human voice answered. This is Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward. The civilians behind us are under our protection. You will withdraw. The Vorak bridge burst into laughter again. Zerak leaned closer. You misunderstand. You are surrounded. Ward's expression never changed. No, he replied quietly. You are. The transmission ended. Across the battlefield, 3,000 human warships spread into formation with breathtaking precision. No shouting. No hesitation. Every movement happened simultaneously. Alliance officers watched in amazement. They're moving. Like one ship. Captain Rena had never seen anything like it. Even before the battle began, she realized something terrifying. These weren't simply advanced ships. They were veterans. Every crew member moved with decades of experience. Every formation was perfect. Every maneuver calculated. Meanwhile, aboard the Dominion, a young tactical officer looked toward Admiral Ward. Enemy weapons locking. Ward nodded. Very well. He slowly raised his right hand. Broadcast on all frequencies. The communications officer complied. Millions of civilians. Alliance fleets. Vorak armadas. Every ship in the Darius system heard the next words. This is Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward of the Human Stellar Navy. 500 years ago, humanity left this galaxy believing peace had finally been achieved. It seems we returned just in time. Ward lowered his hand. His eyes never left the enemy fleet. Open every weapons bay. Throughout the Dominion, thousands of armored doors began sliding open. Along its 30-kilometer hull, massive cannons slowly rotated toward the Vorak armada. Energy gathered inside weapons unlike anything the modern galaxy had ever seen. On the Vorak flagship, Commander Zerak's smile finally disappeared. His sensor officer looked terrified. Commander, we're detecting thousands of energy signatures. Power levels continue increasing. Recommendation. For the first time, Zerak hesitated. The battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy was about to begin. For several long seconds, the battlefield remained perfectly still. Thousands of Alliance survivors watched from damaged ships. Millions of civilians waited inside overcrowded evacuation transports. Across the formation, 200 Vorak warships held position, their weapons locked on the enormous human supercarrier. Commander Zerak stared at the tactical display. Every instinct told him something was wrong. His scanners reported only one supercarrier and roughly 3,000 escort vessels. Yet the threat analysis refused to calculate victory odds. Instead, the computer displayed a warning he had never seen before. Insufficient data. He frowned. Run another analysis. The tactical officer obeyed. Moments later, the answer remained exactly the same. Commander Zerak narrowed his eyes. Impossible. The Vorak Empire possessed the most advanced military computers in the galaxy. They had predicted the outcome of thousands of battles with near-perfect accuracy. They had never failed. Until now. Aboard the HSS Dominion, Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward stood calmly, as if he were preparing for an ordinary training exercise. Tactical report. Commander Evelyn Brooks answered immediately. Enemy formation confirmed. 214 battleships. 48 heavy cruisers. 3 command carriers. 1 flagship. Ward nodded. No reserves. No, sir. He looked toward the holographic display. So this is only a scouting fleet. Yes, Admiral. A faint smile crossed Ward's face. Then we'll finish this quickly. Several younger Alliance officers monitoring the transmission looked at one another in disbelief. 200 warships. Finished quickly? Even the largest Alliance fleet would have struggled against such numbers. Ward spoke again. Any civilian ships within our firing solutions? Commander Brooks checked her display. Negative. Excellent. Ward took a slow breath. Disable enemy command capability. Leave survivors. The bridge became silent. Every officer understood exactly what he meant. This wasn't going to be a battle. It was going to be a lesson. Commander Vorak had grown impatient. He slammed a fist against his command chair. Enough! Destroy them! The Vorak fleet moved instantly. Hundreds of plasma cannons fired together. The darkness exploded into blinding light. Thousands of missiles accelerated toward the human formation. Alliance officers watched in horror. The attack was overwhelming. No shields could survive such concentrated fire. Captain Rena Solis whispered, "They're gone." The first wave struck. A wall of blue fire engulfed the Dominion. The explosions merged into a miniature sun. Sensors across the battlefield became completely blind. For nearly 10 seconds, nothing could be seen. Commander Vorak smiled. So much for legends. Then, the smoke disappeared. The Dominion remained exactly where it had been, untouched. Its shields shimmered faintly for a single second before becoming invisible again. Not a single weapon battery had been damaged. Not one escort ship had moved. The Vorak bridge fell silent. One officer stared at his monitor. "Commander, our attack. It had no measurable effect." Vorak looked confused. "No effect. None." The sensor officer swallowed nervously. "We estimate the shield absorbed less than..." He hesitated. 1% of its total capacity. Even Vorak couldn't hide his shock. 1%. That was impossible. No shield technology could absorb that amount of energy. Not even in theory. Fleet Admiral Ward finally spoke. "Our turn." He raised one finger. "Fire." No dramatic countdown. No shouting. Just one quiet command. Across the Dominion's enormous hull, hundreds of primary weapon batteries fired simultaneously. There was no explosion. No beam. No visible projectile. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the impossible began. The lead Vorak battleship suddenly stopped moving. Its engines shut down. Its weapons powered off. Its shields vanished. Crew members screamed as every system aboard the vessel failed at once. Within seconds, the same thing happened to another ship. Then another. Then another. Across the battlefield, entire squadrons drifted helplessly through space. Commander Vorak stared in disbelief. What did they fire? His science officer looked completely terrified. "We don't know. Our sensors never detected a projectile. It simply turned our ships off." Panic spread across the Vorak fleet. Weapons refused to respond. Targeting systems collapsed. Communications failed. Dozens of ships collided as navigation computers shut down. Meanwhile, the Dominion advanced slowly through the middle of the enemy formation. Like a mountain moving through a storm, Ward watched quietly. "Status." Commander Brooks smiled faintly. "Enemy command network disabled. Fleet coordination collapsing." "Excellent." Ward gave another order. "Launch interceptors." Massive hangar doors opened across the Dominion. Thousands of sleek human fighters burst into space. But they weren't ordinary fighters. Each moved with impossible speed, accelerating faster than Alliance sensors could track. Within moments, they surrounded every disabled Vorak vessel. Instead of destroying them, they targeted engines, weapons, communication arrays, precision strikes, nothing more. Captain Rena watched the battle unfold in stunned silence. "They're not killing them." Her tactical officer nodded. "They're dismantling the fleet." Every shot had a purpose. Every attack removed another piece of the enemy's ability to fight. Within minutes, the once proud Vorak armada had become little more than hundreds of powerless ships drifting through space. Not one civilian transport had been hit. Not one Alliance vessel had suffered additional damage. The battle was already over. Commander Vorak could barely believe what he was seeing. He had entered the system expecting an easy victory. Instead, his fleet had been defeated without understanding how. He looked toward the enormous human flagship. For the first time in decades, a Vorak commander felt fear, and Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward wasn't even finished yet. The battle should have lasted hours. Instead, it had ended in less than 12 minutes. Across the Darius system, hundreds of disabled Vorak warships drifted silently through space. Their weapons were dead, their engines lifeless, and their command network completely erased. The millions of civilians aboard the evacuation convoy couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Some cried with relief. Others simply stared through observation windows at the colossal human supercarrier that had saved them. The name HSS Dominion spread across every civilian communication channel. For younger generations, it sounded like a myth. For the oldest veterans, it sounded like hope. On the bridge of the Dominion, Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward continued studying the battlefield. Damage report. Commander Evelyn Brooks answered immediately. No combat losses. No shield degradation. Interceptor wings have completed target suppression. Ward nodded. Recover all fighters. Yes, Admiral. The bridge remained calm. To the Dominion's crew, the battle had been routine. 500 years of survival beyond known space had taught them to fight enemies far more dangerous than the Vorak. But the Alliance officers watching through the live transmission were speechless. Supreme Admiral Taryn Voss finally asked the question that had been haunting her since the Dominion's arrival. Admiral Ward, what exactly happened to your expedition? Ward was silent for several moments. Then he slowly turned toward the stars beyond the bridge. When we crossed the Black Expanse, we believed we had reached the edge of the galaxy. We were wrong. The bridge became completely silent. There was another galaxy, hidden behind gravitational distortions that made normal navigation impossible. Alliance scientists leaned closer to their displays. Ward continued. We expected empty space. Instead, we found civilizations older than anything recorded in our history. Ancient star empires, living machines, worlds built around dying suns. Species that had mastered technologies humanity had once considered impossible. Some welcomed the expedition. Others attacked without warning. The Dominion was forced to adapt. Ward looked toward Commander Brooks. Every battle taught us something new. We improved our reactors, our weapons, our shields, our medicine, our understanding of physics itself. The Alliance officers listened in complete silence. 500 years of isolation hadn't weakened the Dominion. It had transformed it. Ward continued. We lost friends. We buried heroes. We formed alliances. And eventually, we built something far greater than a single expedition. The holographic display behind him suddenly changed. Several new images appeared. Gigantic orbital shipyards. Floating cities larger than planets. Endless fleets under construction. Alliance officers stared in disbelief. Taryn whispered, "Those aren't military bases." Ward nodded. "They're human colonies." The room froze. Human colonies? Beyond the Black Expanse? Ward smiled faintly. Over 11 years from our perspective, we established 12 new worlds. They became our home. The implications were staggering. Humanity had unknowingly split into two civilizations. One remained in the Milky Way. The other had spent centuries evolving beyond it. Before anyone could ask another question, alarms echoed through the Dominion's bridge. Tactical update. Commander Brooks looked toward Ward. Long-range sensors have detected multiple hyperspace signatures. Identification. The main Vorak fleet. The tactical display zoomed outward. Dozens of new red contacts appeared. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The Alliance Command Center watched in horror. A massive invasion force had changed course after losing contact with Xerox. General Kareth slowly whispered, "That's impossible." The tactical computer finished counting. 8,742 enemy warships detected. Every Alliance officer felt their stomach sink. The fleet advancing toward Darius was 40 times larger than the one Ward had just defeated. Even the Dominion couldn't survive against those numbers. Could it? Taryn looked toward Ward. "Admiral, you should withdraw." Ward didn't answer immediately. Instead, he calmly studied the tactical display. After several seconds, he smiled. "They're finally taking us seriously." Commander Brooks asked, "Orders, sir?" Ward looked across his bridge. Every officer stood ready. "No fear. No hesitation. Only complete confidence. Ward folded his hands behind his back. Signal every fleet group. A communications officer nodded. Transmission sent. Seconds later, countless blue icons suddenly appeared across the holographic map. Not one, not 10, hundreds. They emerged from hidden positions throughout unexplored space. Alliance sensors struggled to process the data. General Kareth stared in disbelief. Where did all those fleets come from? Ward answered calmly. The Dominion never returned alone. The tactical computer updated again. Human fleet contacts. 327,000. Silence. Absolute silence. The number seemed impossible. 327,000 human warships. An entire civilization had crossed the Black Expanse. Ward looked toward Admiral Voss. You believed humanity had become weak. He smiled politely. We never disappeared. We were simply exploring. Then he turned toward the enormous red wall representing the advancing Vorak armada. His voice became calm. Prepare every battle group. Today, the galaxy remembers why humanity was once feared. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. The legendary HSS Dominion had returned. An entire Vorak battle group had been defeated without losing a single human ship. Millions of refugees had survived. For the first time in nearly a century, hope replaced fear. But inside the Vorak capital, hope meant nothing. Only power mattered. The Imperial Citadel floated above the volcanic world of Varaxis, surrounded by thousands of warships. Deep within its black fortress, Emperor Karen sat upon a throne carved from the armor of conquered civilizations. His yellow eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. He had ruled the Vorak Dominion for almost 150 years. No enemy had ever embarrassed his empire. Until today, a kneeling officer lowered his head. Your Majesty, we've lost contact with Commander Zarok. And the 7th Armada? Captured or disabled? Silence. Another officer stepped forward. Recovered sensor logs confirmed the attackers were human. The Emperor laughed. Not because he found it amusing, because he found it unbelievable. Humans? The same species that abandoned military expansion centuries ago? The officer nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. And one ship destroyed my armada? The room fell silent. No one dared answer. The Emperor's smile slowly disappeared. Bring me every recording. Moments later, the battle replayed across the enormous holographic chamber. The Dominion emerged from hyperspace. The Vorak attack failed. The mysterious human weapon disabled hundreds of ships within minutes. Not a single human vessel was destroyed. When the recording ended, the Emperor remained seated. His silence frightened everyone far more than his anger ever could. Finally, he spoke. How many ships can we assemble immediately? The Grand Marshal answered. Approximately 180,000. And within 1 week? Over 400,000. The Emperor slowly stood. Then gather them. Every officer looked up in surprise. The entire Imperial fleet? Yes. The Emperor's voice echoed through the chamber. I don't care if these humans are ghosts, legends, or gods. They will kneel. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Dominion, preparations continued. The bridge had become far busier than before, but there was still no panic. Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward studied dozens of tactical projections. Commander Evelyn Brooks approached. Our reconnaissance squadrons have returned. Ward looked up. Report. The Vorak are mobilizing everything. She enlarged the map. Red icons flooded nearly every sector under Vorak control. They're abandoning occupation duties. They've recalled border fleets. They're emptying reserve shipyards. Ward nodded slowly. So, they've chosen pride over strategy. Commander Brooks smiled. Exactly as predicted. Ward looked around the bridge. How long until their main force reaches Alliance territory? 5 days. And our reinforcements? Already in position. The tactical display changed again. For the first time, The Alliance commanders were allowed to see the true size of humanity's returning civilization. Hundreds of massive fleet formations waited beyond the Black Expanse. Gigantic carriers, planet-sized logistics stations, construction vessels capable of assembling warships in open space, medical fleets, exploration fleets, defense fleets. This wasn't simply a navy. It was an entire civilization designed to travel between galaxies. Supreme Admiral Terran Voss could barely believe what she was seeing. She whispered, "We thought humanity survived." Ward answered quietly, "We evolved." Far away, news of the Dominion's victory spread across Alliance space. On occupied worlds, resistance fighters secretly celebrated. On refugee stations, children painted the old human stellar Navy emblem onto damaged walls. Retired veterans reopened forgotten museums. For the first time in generations, people remembered the old stories. Stories about humans who never abandoned their allies. Stories about fleets that arrived when hope was gone. Stories everyone had believed were myths. Even alien species who had once doubted humanity began broadcasting a single message across civilian networks. The humans have returned. The phrase spread from system to system until it reached worlds still under Vorak occupation. There, it became something even more powerful. A symbol of resistance. Back inside the Vorak Empire, Emperor Karen watched the same broadcast. His expression remained cold. They're turning one battle into a legend. The Grand Marshal nodded. Civilian unrest is increasing. Then crush it. The Emperor looked toward the giant holographic map. A blue icon represented the HSS Dominion. One ship, yet it had shaken an empire that ruled thousands of systems. Karen slowly clenched his fist. "I don't fear legends." He turned toward his generals. "I erase them." His order echoed across the chamber. "Prepare the Imperial Armada. 500,000 warships. No retreats. No prisoners. Humanity ends this time." Back on the Dominion, Ward received the intercepted transmission. He listened quietly before handing the report back to Commander Brooks. "So, the Emperor is coming himself." Brooks nodded. "It appears so." Ward looked through the bridge window at the endless stars ahead. For several moments he said nothing. Then a faint smile appeared. "Good." Brooks looked surprised. Ward's eyes never left the stars. "For 500 years. We've been searching for a worthy opponent." He turned back toward his officers. "Signal every fleet commander." The bridge became completely silent. "Tell them. The age of hiding is over." Thousands of human fleets immediately changed course. From every corner beyond the Black Expanse, they began moving toward the Milky Way. Not to conquer it, but to save it. The greatest battle in galactic history was now only days away. 5 days later, every observatory in the galaxy turned toward a single star system, Asterion. It lay between the Vorak Empire and the heart of Alliance space. Whoever controlled Asterion would control the road to the Alliance capital. The Vorak intended to end the war there. Fleet after fleet emerged from hyperspace until the darkness itself disappeared beneath steel. The Imperial Armada had arrived. 500,000 warships, countless carriers, planet-killer platforms, siege cruisers stretching for kilometers. The formation covered millions of kilometers of space. Never in recorded history had so much military power gathered in one place. At the center of it all floated the Emperor's flagship, Oblivion. Its black hull reflected the light of distant stars like polished obsidian. Emperor Karen stood on the command deck with absolute confidence. "No civilization survives this." The Grand Marshal nodded. "Our scouts report only one human fleet ahead." Karen smiled. "They've accepted their fate." Across the system, the Dominion waited. Behind it stood thousands of human ships in perfect formation. Compared to the Vorak Armada, their numbers looked insignificant. Alliance officers watching from a safe distance became increasingly nervous. General Kareth stared at the tactical display. "This can't be their entire fleet." Supreme Admiral Terran Voss remained silent. She trusted Ward. But even she struggled to believe anyone could stop 500,000 warships. On the bridge of the Dominion, Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward calmly studied the enemy formation. Status. Commander Evelyn Brooks answered. All battle groups in position. Long-range relays active. Evacuation corridors secured. Ward nodded. Civilian traffic? Already clear. No inhabited worlds inside the combat zone. A faint smile crossed Ward's face. Excellent. Then no innocent lives will be caught in the crossfire. The Vorak fleet began moving. The stars disappeared behind an ocean of warships. Commander after commander reported ready. Primary batteries charged. Planet killers online. Attack formations complete. The Grand Marshal looked toward the Emperor. Your command. Karen slowly raised his hand. Advance. 500,000 warships accelerated together. The sight alone was enough to terrify anyone watching. Alliance crews held their breath. This was the end. Then, Fleet Admiral Ward gave his own command. Open the gate. Commander Brooks acknowledged instantly. Executing. Nothing happened. For several seconds, the battlefield remained unchanged. The Vorak commanders laughed. Is that their plan? Then space behind the Dominion began to shimmer. A circle of blue light appeared. It grew larger and larger until it dwarfed entire fleets. Another portal opened beside it. Then another and another. Within moments, hundreds of hyperspace gateways filled the stars. The laughter aboard the Vorak flagship disappeared. One by one, human warships emerged. Not hundreds, not thousands, tens of thousands. Carrier groups, battle fleets, exploration cruisers converted into heavy combat ships. Massive logistics vessels protected by powerful escorts. The tactical computers struggled to update. Alliance officers watched in stunned silence as the numbers continued climbing. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. The display finally stopped. 327,418 human warships confirmed. General Kareth whispered, "My God!" The humans had not returned with a fleet. They had returned with an entire civilization. Emperor Karen stared at the updated tactical display. His confidence vanished for the first time. So, they truly built an empire beyond the frontier. The Grand Marshal swallowed nervously. Orders, Your Majesty? Karen clenched his fists. There is only one order. Destroy them. The greatest battle in galactic history began. The Vorak opened fire. Millions of energy beams crossed the darkness. Missiles filled space like meteor showers. But this time, humanity didn't simply defend. Thousands of Dominion fighters launched together. Heavy cruisers moved into coordinated formations. Advanced shield networks linked entire fleets together, allowing ships to share defensive power across millions of kilometers. Human rail cannons fired projectiles at nearly the speed of light. Precision strikes shattered Vorak command ships. Carrier groups deployed autonomous drones that disabled enemy targeting systems. Every movement had purpose. Every attack supported another fleet. Alliance officers quickly realized something incredible. The humans weren't fighting 500,000 individual ships. They were dismantling a military system. Command relays disappeared first. Supply vessels second. Communications hubs third. Within hours, the massive Vorak armada began losing coordination. Entire battle groups found themselves isolated. Others continued following orders from commanders who had already been destroyed. Chaos spread. Ward watched quietly. Phase 3. Commander Brooks nodded. Fleet-wide maneuver initiated. Across the battlefield, hundreds of human fleets suddenly changed formation at exactly the same moment. They surrounded isolated Vorak groups and defeated them one after another. Not through brute force, but through flawless coordination. Emperor Karen realized the truth too late. He hadn't been fighting a stronger enemy. He had been fighting a smarter one. The empire that had ruled through fear for nearly a century was collapsing before his eyes. And for the first time, the Vorak began to retreat. The impossible had happened. For the first time in nearly a century, the Vorak Imperial Armada was retreating. Across the Asterian system, hundreds of thousands of Vorak warships turned away from the battlefield. Their once perfect formations had collapsed into confusion. Destroyed command ships drifted silently through space while surviving captains desperately tried to regroup. Alliance officers watched in stunned silence. No one had ever seen the Vorak retreat. Not once. Not in 87 years of war. Cheers erupted across every Alliance channel. Refugee convoys broadcast messages of hope. Occupied worlds secretly celebrated. The phrase echoed from one star system to another: humanity has returned. But aboard the HSS Dominion, there was no celebration. Fleet Admiral Nathaniel Ward stood before the tactical display, his expression unchanged. Commander Evelyn Brooks looked at him. "The enemy is withdrawing." Ward shook his head. "No, they're repositioning." As if on cue, the tactical alarm sounded. Long-range sensors detected an enormous surge of energy behind the retreating Vorak fleet. A massive hyperspace portal opened. From it emerged a single vessel. It dwarfed every ship around it. Even the Dominion looked small by comparison. The Alliance database identified it immediately. Imperial flagship, Oblivion. A super-dreadnought built to serve as the personal fortress of Emperor Karen. Its main weapon was capable of destroying an entire planet with a single shot. General Caratha's voice trembled. So, he was holding it back. On the bridge of the Oblivion, Emperor Karen stood with cold determination. "If my empire cannot rule through fear, then this galaxy will have nothing left to rule." He gave a single order. "Target the Alliance capital." Every officer on his bridge froze. "Your Majesty, there are billions of civilians." "I gave an order." The planet killer cannon began charging. A sphere of crimson energy formed at the front of the Oblivion. Alliance sensors screamed warnings across every ship. Time until firing: 3 minutes. Panic spread throughout the Alliance fleet. There was no weapon powerful enough to stop the cannon. No ship close enough to intercept it. Except one. The Dominion. Ward looked calmly at the tactical display. Then he spoke. "Helm. Intercept course." Commander Brooks looked at him. "Sir, if we place ourselves between the Oblivion and the planet, we'll absorb the full blast." Ward nodded. "I know." She hesitated. "The Dominion may not survive." Ward smiled faintly. "When we left Earth 500 years ago, we swore to protect humanity." He looked out across the stars. That promise never expired. The engines of the Dominion roared to life. The 30-kilometer supercarrier accelerated directly toward the charging superweapon. Every human ship opened a corridor for its flagship. Millions watched the enormous vessel move alone toward the enemy. On civilian channels, complete silence fell. The Dominion stopped between the Oblivion and the Alliance capital. Ward gave one final command. "Maximum shield output." Every reactor aboard the ship surged to full power. The blue defensive barrier surrounding the Dominion expanded until it covered hundreds of kilometers. The Oblivion fired. A crimson beam brighter than a star tore across space. It struck the Dominion head-on. For several seconds, nothing could be seen except light. Alliance sensors went completely blind. When they finally recovered, the battlefield froze. The Dominion was still there. The shields had shattered. Its hull carried deep scars. Smoke poured from dozens of damaged sections. But it had survived. Behind it, the Alliance capital remained untouched. Cheers erupted across every communication channel in the galaxy. Emperor Karen stared in disbelief. "No! Impossible!" Ward looked toward Commander Brooks. "Now," she smiled. "All fleets, fire." More than 300,000 human warships unleashed their combined attack. Rail cannons, graviton lances, quantum missiles, directed energy arrays. The concentrated barrage crossed the battlefield in a single coordinated strike. The Oblivion's shields failed. Its armor cracked. Its reactors overloaded. For a brief moment, Emperor Karen stood silently on his bridge. He realized the truth. His empire had never been defeated by superior weapons. It had been defeated by a civilization that fought to protect others instead of ruling them. A second later, the oblivion exploded. The shockwave rolled across the battlefield. The surviving Vorak fleet immediately powered down its weapons. Thousands of commanders transmitted unconditional surrender. The war was over. Weeks later, representatives from every surviving civilization gathered above Earth. Many expected humanity to claim leadership of the galaxy. Others feared they would build a new empire. Instead, Fleet Admiral Ward stood before the Galactic Council and spoke only a few words. Power exists to protect, not to dominate. Humanity did not return to rule the galaxy. We returned to make sure no one would ever live in fear again. The chamber erupted into applause. The human stellar navy helped rebuild devastated worlds. Engineers restored damaged infrastructure. Medical fleets treated billions of survivors. Food convoys reached planets that had been starving for decades. For the first time in generations, the galaxy knew peace. Months later, the repaired HSS Dominion prepared for departure once again. A young Alliance cadet asked Ward one final question. Admiral, after everything you've done, where will humanity go now? Ward looked toward the endless stars beyond the galaxy. He smiled. There are still frontiers waiting to be explored. The Dominion's engines ignited. Behind it, the great human fleets formed up one final time. Thousands of ships entered hyperspace together, disappearing into the darkness beyond the Black Expanse. This time, they didn't leave behind fear. They left behind hope, because the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity's greatest strength was never its ships. It was the choice to stand between the innocent and the darkness. The end